Welcome to the podcast about venture capital, where investors and founders alike can learn how VCs make decisions and reach conviction. Your host is Nick Moran, and this is The Full Ratchet.
Konrad Waliszewski joins us today from Chicago. He is the CEO and co-founder of Tripscout, a new stack portfolio company that is building the first hotel booking app for Instagram. Tripscout now has over 1 million registered users, ranks number 2 in the App Store for the keyword travel, and has over 35 million followers on social. By the way, that's more followers than Airbnb, Hopper, Kayak, TripAdvisor, Lonely Planet, Hilton, Marriott, Hyatt, Expedia, and Priceline combined. Prior to Tripscout, Konrad was a founder and partner at Apto Ventures, in addition to being the COO at venture-funded Speak, which was acquired by Jive Communications in 2015. Konrad has been a travel guru for over a decade, having been named the modern Marco Polo by Forbes. Konrad, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Nick. It's always great to chat with you.
Always a pleasure, man. This is going to be a lot of fun. So take us through your background and your path to Tripscout.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of a culmination of my whole life story. So I was the son of 2 political refugees. And so the 2 things that have always been a constant in my life were doing something entrepreneurial and traveling. So I grew up, dual citizen and traveling all over the world. So the world felt small, and started a career in business, started multiple companies with various degrees of success. But travel has always been a passion and obsession of mine. So I've personally traveled to about 100 countries at this point. I started a travel blog in the very early days of blogging and social media that ended up getting a pretty sizable following, just a couple 100,000 people. And that got me deeply plugged into both the very early days of the creator economy, but also the travel community and the travel industry. And I just saw a fundamental shift happening with our society's relationship to travel. If you look at why we travel, how we travel, what we hope to get out of the experience, how we share those experiences with our friends, all of that just looks so radically different over the last 10, 15, 20 years. Yet it really blew my mind how essentially nothing in the travel industry has changed since 2001 when it first came online. With the exception of taking an Uber from the airport or renting an Airbnb while you're there. Basically, it's the same companies that have dominated the entire industry. And I just became really fascinated why such a massive industry was operating the exact same way, even though its customers had shifted dramatically. And I just became obsessed with that one question. And that took me down a journey that, started Tripscout and got us here today.
So tell us, what was the inspiration that started Tripscout? I know you've done all this traveling. I know that there's a lot of legacy players that haven't really evolved, but what was the major insight or what caught your attention that led to the launch of the company?
Yeah, so there's 2 things. So one, I saw this big cultural shift, and I really dove deep into the industry. So why was this the case? Why are these 2 companies still, basically Booking Holdings and Expedia Group still dominating the entire industry, and no one has disrupted them? When I looked at it, so I went down that path, and at the same time, I just wanted to learn about that cultural shift with the modern traveler. And so I kind of went down this dual track process. And when I analyzed the industry, I saw that, and I found every travel startup that I thought was a good idea that didn't succeed. And I talked to as many founders as I could, and I analyzed from afar. And ultimately, what it came down to was nobody could solve for customer acquisition, because you had Booking.com and Expedia spending $12 billion a year. They were very good at paid ads. You had TripAdvisor, publishers, and what Google takes for themselves, dominating SEO. So any good idea that came into the space, no one could really get traction. And at the same time, I knew that the way that we would be able to create something that, the modern traveler really loved was having more insight into that customer. And so my co-founder and I started building some basic MVP products just to get things in the hands of customers. And we did something really crazy in the early days that turned out to be quite pivotal. We gave our personal cell phone number to every single person who signed up. for one of our products and our original, our original app. Yeah. And
I was going to ask you about it. Shout out to Andy Axe, your co-founder.
Yeah, totally. It's we've been on a great journey together. So 250,000 travelers had my personal cell phone number and Andy's as well. And, my wife absolutely hated me for doing that, but it gave us more insight into psychology and the behavior of the modern traveler. And I told everyone, look, I've been to 100 countries, wherever you're going, there's a good chance I've been. Just text me, call me, email me anytime. Think of us as your travel buddy. And they did. Thousands of people reached out, and we just did all the unscalable stuff on how to help them plan their trip, look at their plans, all of that. And we saw this really interesting shift happening where, and this was quite a few years ago, that everyone was starting their trip journey on Instagram. So they started to search on Instagram before Google and before anywhere else. And so we realized that, this alongside with that piece earlier that I realized that no one could solve for customer acquisition, I came up with this new theory that social media was the new SEO. None of the incumbents and no company in almost any industry was really doing a good job of using social media effectively as both a customer acquisition tool and a retention tool. And I thought, we could really innovate there, and we had our path to solve for that first piece. And so, that led us down this journey where we essentially pioneered the science of SEO, but for social media instead of for Google. And we run the account hotel, so just @hotel. That's our flagship. But we then built over 100 different brands on social media with a high search intent. So almost every major destination and almost every major travel topic, we, if not, are the number one account and community. We're the top few. And so, as people search for places they want to go, we meet them there. And as you said in the intro, has since gained, 35 million followers. That's growing at about 2 million or more every single month. And, like you said, it's more than the entire travel industry combined by a magnitude of 2. So, I think it puts us in a great place. And it has allowed us to create the first hotel booking platform for Instagram, and which we launched officially a couple months ago.
So you mentioned that people's travel journey would begin on social media and on Instagram. I imagine, they're looking for photos of various places to go to. Are they searching hashtags at the time? This is years ago, right? Or are they following accounts that are associated with destinations that they have in mind? What does that user journey look like?
Yeah, the search, and this is changing more as Instagram and other social platforms are starting to become more of a search-based tool. But at the time, it was very simple. Unlike SEO, where you have a wide range of keywords, for social, they would just type in the destination name. So if you were planning a trip to Iceland, you would go to Instagram and just type Iceland, and both hashtags and accounts would show up. And, we run the account Iceland.explore. So the number one account, the number one community would be Iceland.explore. You would follow us and you'd start getting visual inspiration for how you wanted your trip to look. And really that was the priority, is you, rather than go read a string of words and text, you wanted pure visual inspiration. And, that has evolved to be more video inspiration, but you just wanted to see what things look like and what you wanted your trip to look like. And so we just really optimized for that destination name. And so if you search Iceland, we have Iceland.explore. If you search Paris, we have Paris.explore. If you have Chicago, we have Chicago.explore. And we effectively have built, for every major travel destination, we are there that will show up as what we think of it as a page one keyword ranking.
I want to get more into this build, but before we do, you've been to over 100 countries, crazy. Is there a place, whether it be a country, a city, or, something that's kind of a hidden gem that you'd recommend people add to the list?
Yeah. My favorite places, I think the reason we love travel is it pushes us outside of our comfort zone, outside of our routines, teaches us a new perspective about the world and about ourselves. And so I like places that stretch your comfort zone. So some of my favorite places have been, Papua New Guinea or Mozambique or Somalia or places like that. But I realize that's probably not for most travelers. If you're looking for an underrated gem that might not have been on your radar, I think some of the best travel destinations in the world that don't get enough global credit is the country of Georgia, Ethiopia, Malta, and Montenegro.
Very good. Awesome. I don't know if I ever told you this, Konrad, but when I was 26, 27, I bought one of those round the world tickets. I don't know if you remember those.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I remember those.
Yeah, you could pay. So for the audience, back in the day, you could pay a flat rate and you could fly on a connection of carriers like Star Alliance, United's part of that group. And as long as you continued going in the same longitudinal direction, then you could take as many flights as you wanted. You could just never go, if you were going west to east, you could never, move from east to west. You just had to keep progressing. And so, yeah, I spent, 8 months, something like that. I lived in Australia for 4 and just went all over the place. So
that's amazing. I remember those really clunky websites that you could book with those around the world tickets where you could pin and you could map it. And I never actually booked one of those tickets because I ended up just stringing it together. But I am very familiar and know a few people that have done that. So it's a shame they don't keep that. That is a great concept.
For sure. I'm getting flashbacks to those websites and all the lost luggage along the way, which is another story. But back to these followers. Okay. So, I'm very fortunate. Newstack's very fortunate. We're investors in Tripscout. So I've been to the board meetings. I mean, you reached, 5 million followers and we were like, wow, 10 million, 20 million. When I was typing up some talking points for this interview, you were at 30 million. You're already at 35. I mean, it's just bananas to see the social growth. How did you accomplish this, such a large following and growing this audience so quickly?
Yeah, I think the first high level point was we took a very different approach. I think most people looked at social media as an extension of their brand and something they should do. We looked at it really in a scientific customer acquisition channel way. So we thought about it from, how do we test everything we can to rank, to go viral, to really boil down every aspect of social media from a science. So that was the first point. We just approached it in a different way. The second is we looked at it in the sophistication you would, like any product, like we saw it as a product ourselves. So we put as much data as we could pull out of social media. We connected to Instagram's APIs. We built dashboards for social media to see, how things were performing. So unlike most people, or most companies who are posting, 1 time a day or 2 times a day on one account, we were posting 10 times a day on 100 accounts. So we had 1,000 posts a day that we were able to extract insights and data from. And, we had engineers working on this, product people working on this, and not just, what I think a lot of companies did in the early days is put some marketing intern on their social media account. And so we were able to extract insights for how things changed. And then as we detected algorithm changes, I think this is a piece that most people are afraid of with social is if you figure something out and the algorithm tweaks, it's seen as a negative thing. We saw that as the best opportunity because if we detected something, we would shift everything in a split second and go towards a new path. And so basically every time there was a change, we saw a new inflection point of growth. So that was what really got us to be able to, as a few people build this, what you were saying in the early days of this, couple million followers. And then we hit a really inflection point during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. So, which I'm sure we can get into because it impacted travel so much. But when the pandemic hit, first thing we did, I'm sure like everyone, we just, as fast as we could, we just tried to cut as much cost and try to make sure we were going to survive. And we spent a day or two renegotiating contracts and extending our burn. But on day 3, we realized this could be the best thing that has ever happened to us. This is a very competitive industry that spends a lot of money on marketing and a lot of money trying to get attention. And for the first time ever, all that is about to stop. And, the travelers' behaviors and desires, they're not going to travel, but everything's going to be put on pause and it's arguably going to shift. So we did a really deep dive onto, I remember it was like day 3 of realizing this thing was going to be a big deal. Andy and I got on the phone and we said, you know what? Let's make a really bold bet right now. instead of just trying to hunker down and outlast it like everyone else. If this thing lasts forever, we're going to die anyways. So we might as well swing for the fence. And we very quickly dove, back to our roots where we talked to as many users as we can, did all of our own thinking. And we said, how is travel going to be different? How's it going to be better? How's it going to be worse? Like, what's going to change? And ultimately, long term, we concluded that nothing will really fundamentally change once we get past whatever that period. We didn't know at that time it was going to be 6 months or 2 years, but once it gets back, people are going to always have the desire to see the world, and how they want to see the world is not going to change. So we didn't want to do any COVID hacks like, virtual tours and things like that. And so when we looked at that, we then said, now's the best time to double down on our thesis. Organic attention is the most rare and valuable thing. Social media's influence on travel will accelerate. No one is going to travel for a period of time, but they're going to all be on their phone dreaming about travel. So we basically put the entire company, the engineers, the designers, the people who are not typically part of our social media growth, we put everyone on it. And we just said, everything else is on hold. We're just going to go hardcore into this. And, in a year, we went from 2 million to 20 million followers. And we just realized the fact that every one of our competitors, were not running paid ads. Everyone was quiet. We had an opportunity when we had probably more captive audience and more attention than ever, just to build out that asset. And, and it was a huge testament to our investors, you and the other investors, while everyone else was, thinking that the world was ending, which, in many ways it was. We had a plan to play offense instead of defense. You hope that investors support you during the tough times. But, we had runway, we could survive, but we were like, no, we don't, we want to go harder. And you guys were like, yeah, let's do it. And so, I have a huge amount of gratitude for that. Like, we had people who were willing to take contrarian bets, and we as a company were willing to take a contrarian bet. And, we went all in on social during that time as well. And even though that was a big part of our story from the beginning, it just accelerated everything at that time.
What a shock to the system that was when that hit. I mean, for everyone, but then your business is also potentially on the ropes. I remember LPs calling me and saying, many investors that had been fortunate to meet you saying, I feel so bad for Konrad and Andy. Like, they have such a great business and this is just, going to tank it. And I said, hold that thought. These guys, I think the other travel companies that were so reliant on all this booking revenue, I thought that they were in a much more challenged position because you guys took quick action to, right size the costs and then get more aggressive on the growth. And now you come out of it and everyone's trying to acquire customers online, and that's gotten more difficult with Apple. And you guys have your baked in audience. I mean, you have captive audience, 30 million plus on Instagram and other social platforms. You can't replicate that sort of power and that sort of access and that type of channel for such a high value, high ticket, repeatable purchase that people are going to make. I mean, until the metaverse is, all consuming in 50 years, there's still going to be a lot of travel.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was our view, is that we wanted our audience to be an asset. We didn't want to pay to acquire a customer every time they were making a booking. And that's the beauty of social media is Instagram alone has 2 billion users. About half of them open the app multiple times a day. And on average, the Instagram user spends an hour a day on the platform.
You're kidding. That's
nuts. And when you think about, and this is why I'm such a huge believer of social commerce and how that's going to disrupt how we purchase. 75% of people say that they are heavily influenced about the products they buy based on what they see on social media. So you're telling me that you can see your audience multiple times a day for free and talk to them for free and help them and add value and be there at the time they're ready to make a very meaningfully sized transaction. And it just blows my mind how companies are not focused on social media as one of their most important channels. And it's only going to get bigger. I think if you look at just phone usage, especially if you look at a lot of the Asian markets that I think are a few years ahead of us, they're using a few apps to do a lot of things. And they're using apps more and more, but using fewer and fewer apps. And that's, what I think is what most people are sleeping on Instagram is, I think Instagram is going to be a much bigger competitor to your internet browser than anything else. You're going to start finding products, purchasing products, reaching out to customer supports, doing all kinds of things on Instagram that's not just seeing cool videos and talking to your friends. And I think we're in the early days of that. I think social commerce is going to fundamentally shift how we access, the internet and how we look at e-commerce. And, fortunately, travel is one of the largest e-commerce categories in the world. So I think, we're excited about the place that we're in.
Why Instagram? Why the focus on Instagram? Not that you don't focus on other social platforms, but clearly you've doubled down on Instagram and that's the main. Why that over a TikTok or a Twitter?
Yeah. We are everywhere. We want to play. Anywhere someone has their attention, we want to be. And so we have some of the largest Twitter accounts that are travel related. We have replicated a lot of our strategy on TikTok, so we have a big audience. But I have a big thesis of how Instagram is the better platform for that social commerce. And just if you look at the behavior, so TikTok is one of the most engaging products out there. It's very good at entertaining people. But if you look at how that entertainment is done, it is much more of a passive consumption. So people go to TikTok to check out and be entertained. And TikTok is really good at their For You page to entertain them with what that person wants to see. And they sit on that home screen and just watch a bunch of really great videos and then move on. And a lot of people compare TikTok to Instagram. But I think TikTok is really a competitor to YouTube, to Netflix, to Hulu, to sitting on a couch flipping channels.
Passive entertainment.
That is much more disruption. Instagram, you are connecting with brands. You are discovering things. You are searching for things. You are starting to purchase things. You're chatting with people. When we just looked at the behavior, and also when we get a video that goes viral on TikTok, so we get a few million views, effectively nothing happens. You get a few million views, you gain a little bit of followers, but you just got a few million views and that was fun. On Instagram, when you get a reel that gets a few million views, you gain 50,000 followers, you get 40,000 clicks to your website, you have a more long ongoing engagement and benefit. And so that is because people are on Instagram to discover. And that is the difference. And so, and then with Twitter, like I said, we have a big audience on Twitter, but Twitter is mostly for journalists, publishers, and VCs to chat about things. And it's not a place of the same kind of, it's a discovery of ideas, not necessarily the same kind of behavior for travel. The one channel that I think is, or the one platform that I think really is a search-based experience that I think also has a lot of potential for travel is YouTube. But we just haven't figured out a way to systematize in the scale that we are trying to do on YouTube. YouTube is much more based on like actually creating more like creator-led niches about a specific topic. And so we haven't been able to replicate our strategy much on YouTube, but I think Instagram is going to be the main, most important super app for consumers. And so that's why we've really doubled down on it.
So Konrad, you recently rolled out the first hotel booking platform within Instagram. Walk us through how it works and how it helps consumers.
Yeah. So as we talked about with our social commerce thesis, one of the things that Instagram did recently was allow Instagram Messenger to combine with Facebook Messenger. And so that unlocked for us the ability to have a direct conversation and chatbot experience with 35 million people that allows us to do a lot of really interesting things. And so one of the things is, so we've built this hotel booking platform. Any customer can basically send us a message with the word hotel. So you can just, if you're listening, you can DM the word hotel to the account hotel, so @hotel, or any of our destination accounts. And we'll send you back a private booking link that will give you every hotel in the world for the most part. But what it allows us to do, because it's over a direct message, we're able to give you really exclusive hotel deals that cannot be publicly advertised on other hotel booking platforms. So you can save up to typically 30 to 60% off your hotel by just booking through that. And so from an industry perspective, what's really fascinating is that the entire industry, all the online travel agents are bound by price parity agreements. So there's huge margins in hotels, but you have to publicly advertise the exact same rate as everyone else. The key nuances in that is publicly advertise. Privately, you can do whatever you want as long as you're an OTA and the merchant of record. And so because this is a private channel, we're sending you a DM with a booking link that can't be shared, can't be indexed by search engines. We are able to offer you those exclusive discounts. And so as you search for a hotel, you'll save lots of money by booking through us.
So 1-to-1 versus 1-to-many. The Expedias of the world, they have to operate at the best public price, but you can offer sort of the closed membership community level rates.
Yep. It's being able to do 1-to-1 at scale. So that's one, is we're just able to do that. And then the second thing is, because we're building this organic audience growing at 2 million per month, we are able to not spend a lot of money to acquire each customer. So therefore, we have even more margin and more that we can pass on to the consumer.
Amazing. So Konrad, you recently announced your $10 million Series A led by Accomplice and Corzine with participation from us at Newstack and Math. What are the major objectives going forward, that you're focused on that will allow for a strong Series B, in the next 12 to 18 months?
Yeah. So we went through this long journey where we were completely focused on building the audience. We thought that customer acquisition was the hardest part of travel, and therefore we were exclusively focused on building that. Now that we've built the largest audience, that part we just understand really well. We're going to continue to invest and lean into that. But now our entire focus is on converting that traffic to booking really great hotels at really great prices. And so our entire, the point of this round and the point of what we're building up to the next round is focused on revenue, and it's converting that audience to booking hotels. And, one of the things that we're seeing is like we effectively have built-in product market fit because people already like booking hotels and they want to do it for a lower cost. So that has proven really well. But the second thing is, because our customers are coming at us from a relationship and a trust perspective, because they've been engaging and following our account, and because they're coming at us from a person who doesn't just need to book a hotel, but there's someone who really cares about travel and is looking at places that they are dreaming about and wanting to stay at really great places that they find on Instagram, the average booking that we've found is 4 times higher than the average booking on booking.com or Priceline, and 5 or 6 times higher than the average booking on a site like Hopper. And so we're getting really great customers. We've been live on this platform for 2 months, but already 20% of them have booked a second hotel. And so, we're just leaning into providing, basically helping people find the right hotel that they want to, stay and post on Instagram and get a great deal for them. So, we're just going to continue to grow the audience and now focus on converting them to bookings.
I wonder why the selling price for hotels is so much higher with your audience, versus the general audience.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, if you are the type of traveler who really cares about travel and you're planning your trip and you're searching on Instagram and you're getting visual inspiration, it makes sense that you care more about where you want to stay. And then 2, the way that we've really articulated our product is we help you travel better. So instead of saying, here's a $250 hotel room, like, let's go save you 30% and stay there cheaper, we're saying still stay in $250 a night hotel rooms, but get a $500 hotel room at the same price as that $250. So we're really trying to show people what they can get that is even better at the same budget. And so, people really care about their experience. And I think hotels are such a big part of that.
Awesome. So are you actively promoting this new booking strategy to the existing audience? Are you letting them come to you? How are you getting the word out about this one-to-one access to the best rates in the industry through Instagram?
Yeah, we've built a real expertise on what creates viral content and how to create content at scale. So we are creating probably 600 pieces of original video content a day, 600 a month. And we're just promoting, sending us a DM, send one of our accounts a DM. And we've worked with thousands of creators around the world. And so we've pulled a lot of them into the process. And, they're capturing really great content in all of their hotels. And, we're able to do it in a really organic way and just promote the fact that, hey, if you want to save 30 to 60% off, just send us a DM. And I guess it's not that surprising. A lot of people who really like travel want to save 30 to 60% on their hotel and are DMing us.
Amazing. Konrad, you and I have a shared philosophy around finding ways to do everything 10x bigger or 10x faster. How do you help your team think of ways to sort of uncover how to do both?
Yeah, that's a big part of my philosophy, where I think that humans just have a real tendency of thinking in a linear way. And so whenever we have an idea or initiative that we want to launch, I'm always pushing the team to say, okay, what would this look like if we did it 10x bigger? Or what would this look like if we did it 10 times faster? And so, we're thinking that this would, take 4 months. What would have to be true for it to take 4 days? And it expands the way of thinking. And of course, the reactions are always, oh, that's impossible. But then some really creative ideas start flowing. And there's 2 questions that I love asking to help extract this too. Is I say, if we're rolling something out, I'll ask my team, all right, what would you do if I just 10x your budget? So I gave you $1 million and I gave you, 100 people. What would you be doing differently that you're not doing today? And then they, usually that says, well, if we had 100 people, I guess I would do this, and this. And often you find out that many of those things could be done by like, oh, cool, we can hire an Upworker for nothing and be able to accomplish that. And then the second question is almost the complete opposite of that. Is I'll just ask, what is one way we could spend $1,000 that would make your life easier on this, and or help you do this faster? And usually there are just these little ideas that just get the ball rolling, and then it ends up going into the first question of, if I gave you, 10x the budget or 10x the resources, how would you 10x the results? And so I find that those 2 questions have really prompted, if the first question of 10x bigger or 10x faster doesn't work, those 2 usually help bring it out.
Love it, man. We recently had an internal project, kind of a big project that was scoped to take 8 months, and we asked, what would have to be true to get this done in a week?
Yeah,
and everyone had to lift a little bit on the team, but guess what? We got it done in a week.
I think projects always expand to the time that they're given. And again, you just have to, it's a muscle that you have to exercise, but to get people to not think in a linear way really changes those assumptions and makes things like that possible.
Love it, man. Mindset. So Konrad, you've been a founder and a C-level executive at a venture-backed startup before. Give us some lessons, from your previous endeavors that have helped you guide Tripscout to this level and may serve as advice for the other founders out there that, aspire to build a huge startup with 10x objectives and raise a big Series A from great investors.
The number one thing that I've learned is to really understand what is the single most important assumption that you're making in your business that you need to solve for first. And it's going to change at every chapter of the business. But, I early on, I had the tendency of wanting to take on everything. I knew to build a successful business, we had to have these 5 components figured out, but realizing what are the things that you can give yourself credit for, or investors will give you credit because it's been done or it's understood or there's a playbook. And what is the one thing that you will never get credit for and that you have to prove to yourself and your company a way around this. So for example, for us, in the very beginning, we knew that we had to find a way to acquire customers and keep and engage and retain customers and convert customers to bookings and to transactions. But we knew that travel is one of the largest e-commerce categories. People spend, $2 trillion a year on travel. There's very established monetization methods to do that. And so when we started, the one thing we knew we would never get credit for was customer acquisition, because that was the hardest. That was why there was a graveyard of travel startups. So before we even thought about raising a dime, we went all in on solving for that and having a really clear thesis and a really clear answer with data. And, then at different chapters that changes. So I think the number one thing is just keep yourself hyper focused and obsessed over that most important assumption. And I find a lot of founders also do the productive procrastination. They do all the other things that are needed for a business and avoid sometimes that one single assumption, because that's often the hardest, most uncomfortable, most unknown piece. The second is, I think in the early days, especially, really do the unscalable. When we gave our personal cell phone number to the first 250,000 customers, like that kind of stuff, like talking to your customer or your ideal customer and just really trying to listen and really trying to extract why they're doing things. Like when I was helping people plan trips, I would try to get deep into the psychology. I would ask them why they were doing something, and then why was that important? And then really trying to understand what, their job to be done was. And I think that is probably the most pivotal piece. And I think third is like I think a lot of times, especially in the venture-backed world, people use your team size as a metric of success. And I think scarcity usually provides way more creativity and innovation. And then as the teams get bigger, you just have so much more stuff you have to deal with that you don't have to when it's a really small team. And so I think keeping that team very lean, very small, and having the internal, like everything that's really core, you have to have someone internal owning that. But all the jobs that are done underneath that, you can leverage a whole network of global contractors and freelancers and Upworkers. And, I think in the very beginning, we probably had $2 million worth of payroll that I ended up getting for like $10,000 or $20,000 by just leveraging Upwork to do so many things in the very early days. And I would never say outsource the core, like I would never outsource understanding your customer, but then, building the outreach, finding the list, scheduling, like you can outsource almost everything as long as you own the core expertise. And so those three things, at least for now, are where, my big pieces of advice.
Amazing. Konrad, if we could feature anyone here on the show, who do you think we should interview and what topic would you like to hear them speak about?
One podcast that I've been really interested in lately is Sam Parr and Sean Puri's My First Million. I think they have a really interesting way of looking at companies from a different perspective than I think the typical VC model. And I think that would be a really interesting conversation. I'd recommend them.
Love it. Konrad, what resources, blogs, articles, or otherwise have you found really valuable that you would recommend to listeners?
The book Traction by the founder of DuckDuckGo,
Gabriel Weinberg. I've had him on.
Oh, nice. I found that to be the most important book on early stage trying to figure out which growth channels will work for you. And, before we landed on the social media strategy, we systematically went through each one of those for our space. I have found Strength Finders to be one of the most compelling things when building a team and structuring a team. We've had everyone in our company take the Strength Finders test, and we've really architected the type of tasks that we give to people based on, both their the way their body is wired and where they excel at and what they're interested in. And I just found that it is radically improved just enthusiasm and performance, and also decreased burnout When you show up every day working on the things that you're uniquely good at, and people are coming to you for things you're uniquely good at, as opposed to the things that drain you, those two things I would say are come top of mind.
Konrad, do you have any tools or hacks that are a secret weapon?
I think our entire approach to social media is a secret weapon. I think our approach for scaling a global distributed remote workforce, and before the pandemic, where I think, and now a lot of people are remote, but the fact that we built it natively from day one and have been able to attract talent, we're able to find the best person in the world for a specific job at a cost that's usually significantly lower than if we were trying to hire from New York, Chicago, San Francisco, Miami. I think that has been one of our most key differentiators, that we are able to both build a team and build a culture that I think operates more effectively and at a much lower cost. Yeah, and then the third is, I just think this relentless obsession with breaking down assumptions and preconceived notions that allowed us to, effectively find a path to build an OTA, at an unbelievable speed and for way less money than, any of the other OTAs that have been built, and do it in a way that allows us to offer a much more compelling product at a much lower price, based on the nuances of price parity agreements. Now, that's our current secret weapon.
Any final words on the vision for Tripscout and where you're taking it that we didn't cover?
Yeah, I think the final piece, we're extremely focused on hotels right now, but ultimately, I think that the entire travel industry, no one owns the customer. So everyone is so fragmented, where a traveler goes to each specific company for, they go here to book an airline, and then you book here for a hotel, and you book here for a product. And essentially no one has an ongoing relationship. And, core to our social media strategies that we think we built that relationship with people. And so ultimately we want to have a hand in every single thing you transact with all across the entire journey. If you not just book a hotel, but then you want to book a tour and experience, or you want a rental car, or you want to buy shoes for your hike in Iceland, or you want to buy trip insurance, or you want to get the new credit card that has a little huge points bonus, like anything that you should transact with, we want to have a hand in helping you make that decision. And we want to be the only company that has really connected the dots by starting, everyone else started with a product and then went to try to find a customer. And because we're started with the customer and then are adding in products that they want, our vision has always been to, you talked in the intro, but we also have the #1 trip planning app. And we've always wanted to be the super app of travel. And we wanted to have a hand in every journey. And, we just decided to go straight to Instagram for the hotel booking because, you can't really compete with 35 million followers going at $2 million a month, and a compelling way to do closed user group pricing. So, but that's still our vision long term. So we think that hotel bookings can make us a $10 billion company, but ultimately having a hand in every part of their transaction makes us a $100 billion company.
Amazing. And finally, what's the best way for listeners to connect with you and follow along with Tripscout?
Yeah, for me, you can find me Konrad with a K, so GOKONRAD on Instagram is the best place to do that. But I'm also on Twitter and everywhere else. And then for Tripscout, the #1 thing is to follow Hotel on Instagram. So just @hotel and book your next hotel with us. And I guarantee you won't be disappointed.
Well, he is the modern day Marco Polo, Konrad Waliszewski. Always a pleasure, my friend. Appreciate you sharing your thoughts on what has become just an incredible build and story, and look forward to revisiting in a couple of years when you're the dominant travel company in the world.
Thank you so much, Nick. Thanks for having me.
Take care, man. All right, that'll wrap up today's interview. If you enjoyed the episode or a previous one, let the guest know about it. Share your thoughts on social or shoot them an email. Let them know what particularly resonated with you. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that some of the smartest folks in venture are willing to take the time and share their insights with us. If you feel the same, a compliment goes a long way. Okay, that's a wrap for today. Until next time, remember to over-prepare, choose carefully, and invest confidently. Thanks so much for listening.